DaVinci Resolve is a complete editing platform that you could use on a Mac, on a Windows PC, and even on Linux computers. And it's completely free to use. There is no limitations, there is no watermarks. They do have a paid upgrade, I'll mention what that gives you, but most people use it completely for free. And you could download the latest version of DaVinci Resolve here on your computer, depending on what platform you're using. I'll put a link below, just press the download link. And again, you could use it completely for free. And while it's downloading, let me quickly show you the difference here. DaVinci Resolve right here, the free version is what I'm downloading, but the studio version, that's the paid upgrade. So that gives you some other things, like you will get some 3D tools, you'll get a lot of filters that you won't have access to, and you get a lot of audio plugins and more advanced color grading options. Okay, so that's for more advanced users if you eventually want to upgrade to that paid version. I've used the free version now for years. And I'm going to make this video very step by step. So if you never edited before, this will walk you through the whole process one step at a time. Okay, so the very first time you open DaVinci Resolve here, the very first thing you want to do is create a new project. That's step one. So you could go up here to File and New Project. That should be your very first step. Name your project here. So I'm going to name this tutorial video. Now for our second step, I'm just going to give you a quick brief overview of what you're looking at here. And then as we go through it, it becomes a lot easier to understand. But right here, this is pretty much the first place you will start. This is your media pool or media panel. Basically any audio file, video file, pictures that you're going to use, they're going to appear over here. I'll show you how to do this in the next step. This right here on the right side, this is your preview. So your video is going to show up over here once you have a video to look at. And down here is called a timeline. Basically, in a timeline, that's where all your editing will take place. And then on the bottom, this is important. Right here it says media, cut, and so on. This is basically walking you through step by step on what to do first, what to do second, and so on. So media, this is going to be your first step. Every time you click one of these, it will change the whole layout, right? So it will move some things around. So right now we're in cut mode, that's editing. Then we're in full edit mode, right? That's where we really trim things down. Then we're gonna get to fusion mode, and I'll explain all these as we go through it. Color, Fairlight, and deliver finally is when you export your video. Okay, the next step in the process is actually bringing in your video files or any type of media you wanna use. So I typically do that from this cut menu, and I'm gonna drag it to this, what's called the media pool right here. So the panel I showed you in the beginning. So let me go to my Finder window here. You could do this obviously on a Mac or PC. And these are the files I have. So I'm gonna go ahead and select one and then hold Shift and select all four and then just drag them into this media pool area, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and change right here. So it's going to take care of some more advanced things like frame rate for me. I don't have to worry about those things. And just to show you where I get this kind of footage from, I use this platform called Envato Elements, and they're sponsoring this video. And with Envato Elements, you could get unlimited downloads of anything you see on this platform for one subscription fee. So I basically got all kinds of stock footage from here. This is basically a licensing platform, so I don't have to worry about copyright issues and things like that. And it has just hundreds of thousands. In fact, if I remove the word beach here in search, you will see it has millions of stock video files that you could choose from. You could also get your music from here, which I'll show you in a second. And it has other things like it has millions of photos as well. And this is all under the one subscription here. So if you need any footage, that's where I got my footage here. And they're all imported over here. Again, audio and photos will be imported the same way. You just drag and drop them right into this project panel. Now you also may consider getting an external hard drive. So then all your project panels could sit in an external hard drive as a way to keep everything backed up. So I'll put a link in the description to the one I use. So once we have our video files, the next step is actually the editing process. So let's go over here to the editing panel here. And again, it's gonna change the layout. Really all it's gonna do is still gonna have the timeline down here. This is gonna be our media pool here on the left side. This is going to be a preview window, and this is gonna be our final video here on the right side. Okay, so I'll show you exactly what to do step by step. So what I could do is I could click on any of the clips I have up here. I'm gonna double click it. It's gonna load it up over here. It's still not being edited yet. Right now, it's just gonna let us preview it. And I could press play right here. It's gonna go ahead and play it. And then I could decide which portion of this I wanna use. I could also kind of scrub through it like this quickly. And what I like to do is use here a keyboard shortcut that comes in really handy. So you could use the keyboard shortcut I. So if you press I on your keyboard, it'll create that as the in point. So that's where my video is going to start. And then I'll just go through it here. And let's say I want to end it here, and I'll press O. So I stands for in point, O stands for out point. So you could see this is now a little bit lighter. Now I could drag it and bring it down here. Okay, and I'll bring it right in the beginning, and I'll let it go. And just like that, I have my first clip added. And you could see this panel on the right side, that's your edited video. Okay, so the left side is your preview, the right side is your edited video. And again, I could scrub through to see how my edit is looking. This is just adding one clip. So the next thing I want to do is, okay, what's the next clip I want to add? I'm going to double click this one. It's going to load it over here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and scrub through it. And this is the section. I'm going to press I for in. It's going to start the edit here. And O for out. And then I'll drag it. And this time I'll put it right next to this one. And you see how it's snapping next to, this is called snapping. This is what you want. You want it to be exactly connected to the last clip. So now if I take this red line, let me bring it over here. You could press spacebar, it's gonna start playing, and you'll see what happens. It will cut from this clip right to that clip, right? That's what I want. If there is a gap between them, so if I didn't let this snap here, what ends up happening is it will just go to black. So your finished video will have this black section that usually doesn't make sense. So you wanna make sure they snap together like you see over here. And there's some tools up here that I haven't mentioned so far, but snapping is one of those. So you see this one right here, the magnet tool. So you want to make sure this is always turned on so your clips snap next to each other, just like you see over here. So you would do the exact same thing with all your clips in the order you want to tell your story. So I decided, hey, that was clip 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to just press I, press O, and this is my third clip. And you can see this one has a little green section to it. That means this video clip has a little bit of audio with it. So sometimes if you have a video clip where someone's talking like this, so if I was talking, you will see that. Now, if you don't want the audio from it, you could actually select it, but you can't just press delete. If you press delete, it will delete the whole thing. So I'm gonna go to edit up here and undo that. So you could always undo something to bring it back. And you'll have to right click on it. I'm on a Mac, so I can't right click. I'll have to hold down Control and click. And you could actually separate that audio and video here. So you'll see lots of different options here that may be a little bit overwhelming, but you don't have to worry about any of that. Right now, all I want to do is I want to separate the two, which is right here, link clips. I could go ahead and unlink them. So now if I click on the green section and press delete, it won't delete the video file. So they're audio and video, and they lay out like that. And just to take a closer look at the timeline here, right here is your video track, and down here is your audio track. And you could have many video tracks, and they will layer on top of each other, and you could have many audio tracks too, and they would blend in together. I'll explain that as we go further. So another thing you could do as you start editing is sometimes you decide, hey, this clip actually should be at the end. So when the sun sets, not in the beginning, the sequence doesn't make sense. So you could grab it and just bring it to the end here like this. Okay, and now you have a blank section in the beginning. You'll have to select this section and press delete, and it will bring everything back. So now my video starts, as you see, at the 0 second mark, and then it will just, if I press play, it will go clip by clip. So that's how you change the order of clips. And sometimes after you added a clip, maybe your in point and out point are not correct. So I could go down here and look, I could actually change. Basically, if I'm trimming one clip and extending the other one next to it. So this one does come in handy, and that's when you get those two brackets. That's the signal for that. And if you go a little bit over, you see how it changes. So now this will only trim this clip, the beginning of this clip. I could come on this side and do it to the end of this clip too. So if you want to trim something in from the either side of it, that's how you would do it. You still have this blank section, so you do have to go ahead and close the gap. I'm gonna actually select two clips this time like this and close this gap too, okay? So That's how you could trim clips that are already on your timeline down here if you didn't do the right in point and out point. And sometimes when you're talking, especially if you're making videos like this, you can make a mistake in the middle of a clip, right? So you have to take some in the middle. The in and out point doesn't quite work out. So the way you do that is you need to split a clip. That's this icon right over here. So this is the blade tool. So you could select this one, and the keyboard shortcut for that is B. That comes in really, really handy. So you will make a cut right here, and I will move the red marker over here, cut again, and then I'll go back to the arrow tool one more time and select in the middle and press delete. And that took out something in the middle of a clip. That comes in really, really handy in dialogue type scenes where I'm talking, for example. And then I could go ahead and grab this one and close that gap. So it'll go from here to another clip. So you would go ahead and assemble your first video track. The next thing I want to show you is what's called adding B-roll. So typically when someone's talking and then it shows what they're talking about, that's what's called B-roll. So in this case, I have my video track 1, but let's say I wanted something on top of this video track. I could add a video track 2. So for example, I'll just grab this clip here. I'll bring it on top, and you see how as soon as I grab it and put it right on top here, it creates another video track on top of it. That's called a cutaway or a B-roll track. So now if I just go on in the beginning here, press spacebar to play, it will go and it will show whatever is on top. Okay, so it will basically mask what's under it. And I could again trim this down if I want to. So I'll go ahead and grab this and make it much shorter. So this is what's gonna happen. It's gonna go from my clip to the B-roll back to the original clip, right? So when someone's talking, typically it's nice to show what they're talking about on that second video track. Now next we want to add transitions. So transition is what happens when one clip ends and another clip begins. So in this case, when this clip ends, if I press spacebar, it went to this clip, but there was no transition between. That was just what's called a cut, just cuts from one to another. But sometimes to smooth things out, you want to add a little transition. So you could go and click right in between two clips, and you could go ahead and right click on it, and you could add basically a simple dissolve. So you see these frames right here. So typically a 25 frame dissolve is about a second in this case. So I'll press it, and let me press spacebar. So you see the difference there between a cut and a dissolve. This is just a much nicer transition. And there's lots of different transitions here that you could choose. So let me show you that now. If you go up here to effects right here, there's going to be a lot of video transitions. You could click this toolbox video transition, and I just did a simple dissolve, but you could blur. So that's what a blur looks like. You could see if I scrub through it, it shows me exactly what it's going to look like. Cross dissolve is what I showed you. Dip to a color, like dip to black sometimes. It's really nice, but you could change that. So any of these, you could go ahead and see if it's to your liking. A lot of these, like these iris ones, are really cheesy, so I typically stick with these dissolve options. But sometimes a push comes in handy like this. You could go ahead and choose that. So to apply that, you could drag it and put it in between two clips like this, and it's going to apply it. So there it is. Okay, then I could show you another one here. Let me just go ahead and choose a simple one like this blur, bring it between these two clips, press play, and that's a simple blur. Now let me show you a really simple way to add text. So the easiest way to do that is, again, click on the effects panel the same way we found transitions, and titles is what we want here, and there's going to be a bunch of text options that you could simply choose. Okay, so you could go through, there's a lot of them here that you could choose. So for example, this one just fades in. I could grab this just like a video clip. I could put it anywhere I want, and I could double click on this, and it's gonna let me edit that text in this text box. And this is gonna basically fade in and fade out. And you have a lot of different text controls, okay? So you could change, for example, the style of the text entirely. So you could change the font right here. You have colors, you have sizes, so you could increase the size. With text, you have very advanced options inside of DaVinci Resolve here. So make sure you play around with text. And text could also be laid out on top of the video. So if I grab it and put it on top of the video in track 2, for example, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, it's going to show up on top of the video, which comes in handy lots of times. But it really depends on how you're using it. If you're using it at the end or the beginning and it's the title, maybe you don't want video under it. But again, you could just simply drag and drop it from here anywhere on your project, and they work exactly the same as a video file. So you could go ahead and trim them the same exact way as I showed you. You could use the blade tool to split the middle of them. Everything is the same as if you're using a video file. And I'll grab a quick photo here from Envato Elements to show you exactly how to add a photo. And this time, I'm just gonna bring it to this panel right here. So I'm not even gonna change my window. I'm still in editing. So I'll go over to the download folder and I'll grab and put it right here. This is the clip, and I'm gonna drag it to my timeline and I'll put it right at the end over here. And same thing with images too. You could trim them the exact same way, and you can make them as long as you want as well. So that's one thing you can't do with video. Video is as long as that clip is. With images, you could just stretch them out as long as you want. And this is what it's going to look like. And again, you could add this to another layer as well. So you could put it, for example, on video track number 3 I just created, right? That's gonna cover my video under it and my text under it. So whatever video track is at the very top is gonna cover what's underneath. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually select this and press delete because I don't need that right now. Let's go and get music. So this is, again, I recommend you get music from this sort of platform where you get what's called royalty-free music. So you actually get a license to use these. Otherwise, in platforms like YouTube, you get into what's called copyright issues. So you technically can't just Google a song and use it in your project. You have to have copyright-free or royalty-free music. So I typically, again, this has hundreds of thousands here, and I listen to them, and I'm gonna go ahead and just download this one that I like. I'll just go ahead and press download. Now this is gonna give me this file right here. I'm gonna select it, I'm gonna bring it over here, put it over here, and I'm gonna drag it down, this time to the audio track, right? This is not a video file, so I'm gonna make sure it goes in the very beginning right here and let go. And as you can see, this is far longer than my edited video, which is only 10 seconds, right? This is a minute-long song. So I could choose the blade tool, cut the very end of it right here, choose the selection tool, select the remaining part, and press delete. Okay, so that's gonna let me do exactly what I wanted to do, have a song here that's the same as my video file. Now, depending on what you're editing, sometimes you want your song to be background, sometimes you want it to take over and be the dominant sound. So right now, the audio level is exactly where I wanted it to be, but if I want it to be background, I need to reduce the audio level. So you see right here, if I go right on this line, I could drag it down. And typically, for background music, you want it to be somewhere around 30 to 35 dB. Okay, so that's the volume level of your song. And then that way, if someone's talking, they're not really being overtaken by the music. It's kind of blending the two together. But if you're making, for example, a slideshow, a music video, or something like that, you just leave that at 100%. So I'm gonna go back at 0 dB, which is, again, 100%, which is the regular volume of the song. You can raise the volume of things by just going up, but make sure you don't just go too high. Just listen to it and make sure it's not dominant. Now, sometimes you want to fade out an audio track like a music, right? You don't want it to just suddenly end. So let me actually use the zoom slider here so I could show you the end of it. If you come to the very end, you see this little white square here, grab it and drag it in. This is letting you fade it out. So now this is gonna slowly fade out the music, okay? And you could stretch this out as long as you want. So for example, this is almost 2.5 second fade out now. Now let me quickly show you some of these other panels. So this Fusion panel is far too advanced for someone that is starting out. So I highly recommend you spend most of your time editing your videos in a beginner's guide in the edit panel. The Fusion panel I typically cover in more advanced trainings. Now you have the colored panel. DaVinci Resolve used to really be one of the most prominent apps for color grading and color correction. Now it's a full-blown editor, but this is really how it got its start. And again, if you've never done anything in the world of color correction, this is gonna seem way too overwhelming. I've been editing for a long time, well over a decade, and this still is very complicated, but it's very powerful. But the simplest way basically to deal with color is you could select a clip. It's gonna load it up over here for you. And you could go to this panel right here called LUTs, And this is gonna have some basically pre-designed color palettes here that you could simply choose from this whole list. Okay, so this is one way. For example, you could double click on it and it will apply it to your clip. This obviously doesn't need color correction, but by just double clicking, it would apply it. And then you have this graph here where you could really take it to the next level. Again, this is a beginner's guide, so I'm not gonna focus too much on color correction, but sometimes this is how you could make some tweaks to your existing video files. And Fairlight, this final window here before we get to the last thing, is for advanced mixing of your audio. So in the editing platform, in the editing window, typically you could do everything you need to with audio, but Fairlight lets you take it to a whole different level. So if you think about it, we really spent time in the first couple windows here, and these last three, before we get to deliver, are for more advanced things that I don't recommend you touch. I could basically create entire professional video projects just from the edit panel without ever getting into these three. This is for much more high level. So I'll cover these in upcoming videos. But right now, let's go to our final tab for delivery. This is your export. This is when you take it from the video editing and you actually get a usable video file that you could use whenever you want, wherever you want. So I'm gonna show you exactly what to do over here. On the left side, you have a bunch of different settings. H.264 is a very common export setting. So you could choose this one. This is how it compresses a large video file and makes it smaller. So I would just choose this right now. You could also use H.265, which is the more modern version of H.264, but H.264 has been around a long time, so that's what I recommend you use right now. Then you change your format right here to MP4. That's pretty much most YouTube videos. Codec, again, is H.264. And resolution, you already knew what it was. So I didn't have to tell it what it was because it's based on the clips that you used. Same thing with the frame rate of what I got from Envato Elements. So really, I don't need to worry too much. All I have to do is I have to make sure the format is MP4, which is very standard, and H.264 is the codec. And I need to name my video file, okay? And then I could decide where it's going. So I'll just put it on my desktop, press save, and then I just have to press add to render queue on the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and press render all now. Okay, it's done. Now, if I go ahead and just minimize DaVinci Resolve, this should be on my desktop. So I could press the space bar and take a look at my entire video here. And I'm also working on a very complete training for someone that wants to really learn DaVinci Resolve. So I'll go ahead and link that below. Go ahead and sign up and I'll let you know when it's complete. Thanks so much for all your time. All the resources are below in the description, and I'll see you next time.